All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Parks and Recreation Commission regular meeting. This is Wednesday, May 8th, 2019, and it is 5:35, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So with that, Ms. Rachel, can you please call roll?
Yes, Jessica West.
Present.
Dom Gelsomino.
Present.
Heath Bevan.
Present.
Joe Greer is absent. Abby Hutchins is absent. Michelle Jensen.
Present.
John Nesmith is absent. Mike Pepin is absent. Craig Steele.
Present.
All right, first item, we need to, can I get an adoption of the agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner Steele?
I would like to make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. Seconded.
Commissioner Gelsomino seconds. Motion approved.
We need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I get it all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Sorry. I think I jumped ahead of myself with that one. Next item.
That's why you have us here.
Yes. All right. Can I get an motion for approval of the minutes?
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner Gelsomino.
I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting of April 17th, 2019. Craig still seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. On to announcements. I think our first item, we're going to go ahead and, are we going to head and move it till later for Abby to arrive? So if that's okay with everyone. And so we're up with Shelley
Rachel.
with upcoming events.
Hello, I'm glad to see you all got in. It's always smart to make reservations. Anyhow, we've got a lot of things happening. As the weather warms up, so does the pace of our activities and events here in the city of Meridian. And so we are hopping and bebopping. Right now, surely it hasn't escaped your notice that it's Unplug and Be Outside Week. This is our 6th year that we devote a special week to having a variety of free events and activities and experiences. We want to motivate and inspire families and people of all ages to get up off the couch, turn off their devices, their cell phones, their games, or unplug the refrigerator in my case. Anyway, whatever it is that distracts them electronically and keeps them from enjoying the great outdoors. So we're really in the midst of a really nice schedule of activities. We had a kickoff in Kleiner Park on Saturday that was well attended. And then each day and evening this week, we tend to have a variety of activities. Tomorrow is one of our busiest days ever with most of the activities in Kleiner Park. And one that you might be interested in, not only will there be some little sporting activities for children, including tennis, lacrosse, flag football, and soccer, but the Idaho Fish and Game Take Me Fishing trailer will be there at Settlers Park. And then even most importantly, we'll have the food truck Frenzy fundraiser, which is from 5 to 8 in Settlers Park. We're raising funds, a portion of the proceeds, to benefit the Parks and Recreation's Care Enough to Share Youth Scholarship Program. And this is our little slush fund of money that we use to help low-income qualifying families that need to pay fees for classes or camps that they probably otherwise would not be able to afford. So again, you can go online to meridiancity.org/unplug, or I've given you each the little flyer to look at. I've given you our standard schedule of events, and really, I could fill this thing 10 times over, so there's lots of little fun runs and activities that aren't really ours that are not included, just in the interest of space and time. You can always look at the city website's community calendar for more details. Our farmers market is in full swing, which makes us happy. Like I say, the fishing trailer's making lots of stops. One thing I might point out is this little slip of paper I gave you. It describes a fishing dock dedication. The little ADA accessible fishing dock and the paved pathway that lead to it, they're about completed now. They're just fluffing up the landscape. I think it's about done. So we're going to celebrate it with a little dedication. There's a dedication plaque, and we'll have Mayor Tammy, and you're all certainly invited, as are some of the city councilmen, anyone else who might be interested to come out and celebrate this new ADA accessible fishing dock. It was largely made possible through the efforts of the Mayor's Senior Advisory Council, as well as Republic Services and Parks and Rec. So it's a joint celebration. We'll all go out and cast a line, possibly. You don't need to bring a fishing pole, but I might bring mine. Just saying. Anyway, I won't bore you by reading the calendar of events to you, but just take a look and see if anything interests you. At the end of the month, we will have our Memorial Day ceremony out at the Rock of Honor that we coordinate with the American Legion and Veterans of Foreign War, as well as the Rock of Honor Foundation men and women. So take a look, and if you have any questions, you just let me know and we can talk about it. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions? No? Okay.
Madam President, I have a question. So do you know what food trucks will be at the thing tomorrow night?
Oh, important. Yes, I do. Okay, let me think.
Not that it makes a big
Yes.
difference to me. I'll
Yes,
eat
it
anything,
does.
But, you know.
Yes, it does.
Go catch some fish.
Coned pizza, Dickie's barbecue, Wendy's whip and drizzle, Rusty Dog, oh gosh, that Daisy's ice cream and gelato. What
Kanakatak?
else? I can't remember what else. What? No, Kanakatak, no.
Big Judd
Big Judd's. Thank you. That's it. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, the big old hamburgers are Big Judd's.
and Dutch Brothers.
And who else?
Dutch Brothers.
Dutch Bros. Exactly. Thank you. I didn't have it written
All
down.
right, thank you.
Yeah, so a nice selection of savory and sweet delights. And like I say, not only the food truck, but there'll be fishing going on and then little children's activities in the playing fields in the surrounding area. Okay?
I have one more question for you,
Yes.
Shelley. The picture with the mayor on the front,
Yes.
where is that at? Where's she at?
Holland.
with all those
I was gonna
flowers?
say-
Holland.
Holland.
That is not one of our venues this year.
Okay.
That was just
I was like, where is this?
And
their
for added effect, she's clutching her cell phone
You
for the
read my
unplugged.
mind.
So it's like a little hidden Easter egg of delight that you can notice. We will crop her photos more carefully next year. Okay, are we good?
You read my mind. I'm glad
Thank
you
you.
said something, Shirley. Otherwise, I would.
I know.
I would have been in hot water.
We get a giggle out of that. Okay, thanks
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Shelley. Great. Up next, we're going to talk about our team building activity. Mr. Sidaway's not here. Mr. Barton, are you?
Thank you. Madam President, Commissioners, so we had talked about every summer we do a team building activity, usually in one of the parks, and we barbecue and bring lawn games and take a look at either the last few years it's been a new park or we played pickleball one year. So this year we thought about going to Discovery Park. It will be substantially complete by then. The grass won't be ready for to bring the rugby team out quite yet, but we can have a nice barbecue there and take get a firsthand look at the park before it's open. So we're thinking of that the park will be open to the public sometime in late July, and this will give us about a 1 month ahead of time preview. So if that sounds good, I think that we're open for feedback, and if that sounds like a good idea, Rachel can send out invites, and sounds like a pretty good time.
Well, I know I've been excited to see the Discovery Park, so I think it's a great opportunity.
Madam President, I would vote yes. I love the idea. I think it's an opportunity for us to see this new gem that's coming down the path.
Everyone else? I think I
seems great.
see. We didn't need to do a vote. Everyone's heads are
Right.
nodding. And so I think it's unanimous across the
See
board
nods.
anyways.
There's food, so.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yes.
replaces our
Yeah,
monthly
that
meeting.
replaces our June meeting, 5:30 start.
Okay.
And it will be held on the same day, the second Wednesday.
Yep.
Correct? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Barton. Well, since Commissioner Hutchins has not made it here yet, why don't we just move on to new business? We have a Kleiner Park Community Garden update. Is Julie Bodenkamp available? Okay.
Madam President?
We can skip ahead if we need to, Mr. Barton.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to suggest, we
Because
do our pathways.
I know that we
tour
see
debrief.
our Miss Kim Warren, and she's next on the agenda for the Pathways Tour debrief. So let's just go ahead with that.
Would you like me to come up front? I don't really have any visuals, or,
Whatever you're more comfortable with, I'm sure we'll be fine.
okay, maybe I'll do that. Madam President and Commissioners, it's nice to see you tonight. So our meeting last month was the Pathways Tour, and I think all of you joined us. So this is just an opportunity to recap and to ask you, what did you think? What was useful? What might be improved upon? Just any general comments and ideas.
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Steele?
I thought it was great, Kim. You know, just seeing some new pathways that we have coming on, where they're going to be. It's always good to get your feet out there, your bikes out there, and ride along it, and just to see kind of what they're going to see down the road. So, no, I thought it was great. Just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Madam President, I concur. I think it was a great opportunity for us to see. I think it also, for myself, really highlighted the challenge we're going to have in front of us as we are growing out that way. I mean, I didn't realize how many new homes we had with the new school, what that's going to do to our population to be able to get from point A to point B for our kids. So it was great to see.
Excellent. Madam President, just to recap quickly, I kind of had coined the Northwest Passage. So we were up in the northwest part of town, just for the record, started at Sawtooth, went through Bridge Tower, the Oaks, we took a peek at, and then out by the new high school. So I know there are a lot of plans for pathways, but it was a situation where near the end there wasn't much to write on our experience pathway-wise, but I know that a lot of work is happening, and yes, there's much to be done. I didn't mean to preempt you, sorry.
Oh, no. Madam President, Kim, I concur with my fellow commissioners. It was a wonderful experience. You know, I'm still relatively new to Idaho. I will celebrate my 10th year in Idaho this year, and I mean, I'm very, very impressed by what is going on in our pathways and seeing how we are outpacing, you know, our neighboring cities. When they claim to be the best and brightest, we have the results that prove otherwise. So thank you so much for all the hard work that you do.
Madam President, Commissioner Gelsomino, it does feel like important work, and I'm grateful for that. So I'm glad to be doing what I can.
Yes, extremely important, and we all look forward to that. I think we all love the experience to get on the pathways and see exactly where we plan to add more or change and kind of pursue new opportunities. So thank you so much, Kim, for organizing that.
All right, you're welcome. Glad you could join us.
Up next, NPR Department Strategic Presentation. Is that Mr. Barton?
Madam President, I would ask if we could jump ahead to the budget enhancement. I would be comfortable covering that one. If Steve continues to be tied up, I would ask that we continue that item. Okay. But I am more than comfortable to come up and talk about budget enhancements.
Perfect.
Madam
Thank
President?
you. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Steele?
Ted, this might be a question for you. With these changes, do we need to amend our agenda?
You know, you're noting what you're doing and the things that you're putting off. I would suggest that you loop around at the end and either take the items up or formally continue them to the next agenda. So I would just say continue what you're doing.
Okay.
But wrap it up or tie up the loose ends at the end of the meeting.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. And I didn't want you to feel left out there. You hadn't joined us in a while. So.
So, and I apologize. Ted, are you our new permanent?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I work with Emily upstairs, and she is out this week and asked me to cover for her, and she'll have to take a meeting or two for me and return.
Wonderful. Well, welcome.
I know Craig from way back when I used to cover the commission.
I say used to. He used to sit in the chair. So
It's fun to be back. Thanks.
And Madam Commissioner, if I can just interject, Ted is sort of the expert that I go to for, Mike and I do for when we need to acquire land or have easement questions. He's kind of the guru, so he's a big help to the department behind the scenes here and there. Thanks.
Good, thank you. So I'm familiar with the enhancements. I haven't seen this slide show, so I'm going to do the best I can. I'm coming in off the bench, so maybe just forewarn you and bear with me. So I think with that, we'll dig in. So pathways continue to be a number one priority, and both with our citizen surveys and in the department and with city council. So we are proposing a couple of improvements to the pathway system. Number one is a connection that is just west or just east of Locust Grove and south of Ustick. There's a couple of subdivisions that are going in that are providing the connections, and those are in the red lines. And there's a pathway that's under construction, and that Oberg sub. And then as you go to the east towards Eagle Road, it becomes a little bit sketchy, but there is an opportunity there with land that's owned by Nampa Meridian Irrigation District to provide a connection from Locust Grove up into these subdivisions that are partially built and the pathways that are being installed by the development community. So we see this as an opportunity. This first enhancement is just requesting the design funds. Year one, we wouldn't request construction money until the design's complete and we have a true opinion of cost and we know what to ask for. So this is kind of low-hanging fruit. We don't need to get any right-of-way or any easements. So, and if at any point you have a question, just jump right in. So number 2 on the pathway list, we're calling the first one 1A, and then this would be 1B because they're both pathway connections. This is that Fairview Avenue that would take us from the 5 Mile Creek pathway that opened up last year. We did a ribbon cutting. It's H2. Goes from, so this is the connection that goes from Pine to Fairview. Crosses over Badley and continues north along Fairview. We did a little bit of preliminary work on this and did just a schematic design and to see if it would fit in the existing right-of-way, and it looks like it will. So we don't need to acquire any easements or any right-of-way. It's just a matter of working with ACHD and doing a sidewalk widening project there. So we're requesting design funds that would do construction documents, and then also there's some utility relocation work. There's some power poles that are right in the middle of the sidewalk. So that is number 2 or 1B.
Now, Mr. Brett, before you move past that,
yeah.
With the design process, would that be the time when it kind of is determined if there will be a barrier or like a half wall, a mid wall, or any kind of wall?
Yeah, great question, and yes, okay. That is there because of that. The nature of that road and the volume of traffic, yes. to get out there with young children, or it's uncomfortable. We want to make it as safe as possible. So there would either be, I think it needs something more than an extruded curb, because if there's a distracted driver that veered off, we want to keep them off the path for sure. And we would bring those designs forward and okay. Ask for input before we got too far down the road. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Number 2 is Discovery Park Phase 2 design. We are would like to move into design of Phase 2 of the park, and our goal would be to kick off design October 1st. Get an opinion of cost, get far enough into design with your help and input, and that spring to get an opinion of cost that we could budget the construction money for the year following FY20, so it would be FY21 for construction. We would bid it in calendar year 20, break ground in 21, in the spring of 21. So that's kind of our goal with that one. And then an additional recreation coordinator is on the list, and that's at number 3. This recreation coordinator is an adult sports coordinator with Discovery Park, and the additional softball fields and tournaments, and we feel we've kind of maxed out, and Colin, you can jump in if I'm missing anything. You're way more versed at this particular ask than I am, but it's tied to significant growth in our sports programs, and there are some additional offerings that we would consider if we had someone to put the league together.
Yeah, I'll just throw out. I'm not sure. I can't remember what all Steve has mentioned, to the commission about this, but there's a huge trend anymore with some of the millennial-aged adults are trending toward more social sports as opposed to traditional sports. And so while our softball, volleyball, basketball programs are really still doing well, we feel there's a really big demand for cornhole leagues and things like that. That Steve, as we've been talking about it, Steve calls them backyard sports, but there's a lot of possibilities out there for things like that we feel are a gap kind of in the community that we could help fill with an additional sports coordinator. And like Mike said, once, especially once phase 2 is finished and we have, 5 softball fields out there, this position would be running softball tournaments pretty heavily in the summertime. And then, of course, we have home court that could host a lot of basketball and volleyball tournaments over the winter.
Thank you.
Thanks. Number 4 is a Parks and Recreation intern position for the summer. It's a part-time staff person that can help, depending on what their qualifications are and what their area or their path of interest in the field of recreation is, whether it's sports or camps or classes, then we could direct them towards that. They could gravitate in that area and lend a hand during our busy season. So this would be an internship position.
Mr. Brent, so that's open right now? That's what?
No, this would be for not this summer, but next
Okay.
summer. So if it's approved and funded, we would have the position approved October 1st, but we wouldn't hire that position until the following summer. So it's really geared towards somebody that is currently going to college for a recreation type.
Education.
Education.
Madam President, I have a question. So do you know about is it a paid internship?
It is a paid internship, and that's
You know
why
about
we're
I'm
requesting
curious,
the
so next
budget.
summer, if I'm aware of anybody, what it pays? Well, I did want to know.
That's a
Doesn't
great.
matter now,
That's a great
but-
question.
We'd be in the $10, $11, $12 an hour range, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
great summer job for someone going to school for recreation type stuff.
Yeah, because I get contacted by alumni association stuff or
Oh, yeah.
placement
Yeah,
for
cool.
internships, so I'll keep that.
So
in
if
mind.
this is approved, we'll
Keep that in mind.
we'll reach out to you. And we'll put the word out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is a request for some different attachments that would go on some of our existing equipment. And so one of them is a power broom, and the power broom can be utilized in different ways. It's an all seasons type attachment that would go on this. So we already own a couple of these Ventrac tractors, and the attachment, so you can put a broom on it to do snow removal in the winter. You can do sweeping. I know at Kleiner Park, where when we can't chase geese, the geese they leave stuff behind on the sidewalk. So this is one way to clean that up and make things more presentable. There's leaf debris that needs to be cleaned up. The other attachment is the mower. With a lot of these pathway areas that we take over, we also assume the maintenance for these pathways. And we don't want to use chemical weed control on the banks and on the top of the slope for some of these. So We don't want to get a piece of equipment that's too close to the top of the slope. So this can reach out and mow and cut and trim some of that weed growth back and keep the areas looking presentable and you know, not have that chemical use near the waterways as well. So, excuse me. The other one is a debris loader. So with the addition of Fuller Park and as our parks get older, our trees are quickly maturing, which is a really good thing because they provide a lot of wonderful shade. They sometimes can't grow fast enough. We appreciate that, but in the fall, there's a lot of leaf debris to deal with, and it seems like we've been spending more and more manpower in the fall cleaning up leaves, and we need to figure out a way to do that more efficiently with the same amount of manpower that we have. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. We can broom leaves into a pile, and we can draw those up into this vacuum thing and put them in the back of a truck. Otherwise, we don't really have a way to do it other than putting leaves in tarps and throwing them in a truck. And it takes a lot of bodies. And, you know, it seems like in the fall that there should be a time where parks tend to slow down, but they really don't. Because in October, we're doing some of our last mowings. We have to winterize everything. We have to put shade sails down, winterize splash pads, winterize all the sprinkler systems, including all the contracted sites. At the same time we're doing that, we're hanging Christmas lights because the tree lighting and the parade is December 1st. So we really have that like October, November, and some years you see some of the park staff hanging Christmas lights in October, and it's like, what are you guys doing? But when you really think about it, you got to get through all those tasks by December 1st. So we're just trying to work smarter and be a little bit more mechanized where we can. So that's some of the logic behind these requests.
Makes sense.
We borrow that on the weekends?
Only if you get us a good intern. The other thing, and this kind of ties into, you know, the maturing urban forests that we have, and the trees are growing and becoming more established. We're getting more trees all the time. And Discovery Phase 1 alone, there's 230 trees going in. And we've gotten to the point where we're requesting funding for next fiscal year to hire a seasonal forestry assistant that can take over items like one of the things that falls into forestry, all the downtown trees, the City Hall water feature, Generations Plaza, we have to test the water almost daily to keep it chlorinated and keep it safe. There's tasks like that. There's also just the planting trees, Arbor Day, all the things that the forester does. We really don't do a lot of tree work ourselves, heavy work. We contract that out. But I think when Elroy's come in and given his update that there's an incredible number of trees that he plants. And there's also the forester, as the community expands, the forester becomes more and more occupied with calls from the community that they either have a tree in the right-of-way that's encroaching in their yard, or a neighbor's tree is hanging over their fence, and they just want a little bit of guidance and someone to talk to. So we do those as well. So this would be a very valuable person to have. So number 7, Heroes Park parking. So with parking at Heroes Park has been a challenge since the park was built. We've been able to mitigate that challenge by working with PAL to schedule their games a little bit better. When we first opened the park, they scheduled the entire field back to back to back to back to back, and there was no consideration given between putting gaps between games where you can get one game over, those people leave before the next people show up. So we've been able to really kind of limp by with scheduling activities. The park is right now it's functioning fairly well the way it is. The problem that has come up, or the challenge that has come up with the widening of 10 Mile Road, all of the parking that is in the gravel along 10 Mile right now is going to go away because there's going to be curb and gutter and a bike lane there, so there won't be any parking. The other thing that PAL is doing, or people do, is they park across 10 Mile at the LDS church, and they run across 10 Mile Road with little kids. So it's dangerous today. We've seen that firsthand where we've tried to cross with bicycles. It's dangerous. And so
and they also park in the neighborhood, which the people that live there don't like.
And in the neighborhood, we do have an agreement with the little church that's there in the gravel parking lot to use their lot, which has been very helpful. There may be a point in time where that goes away. So we are proposing Heroes Park parking expansion design only. We're working out a partnership with PAL to help fund part of this. We're asking for half. We think that it's good for, although this benefits PAL, it also benefits the park, because without enough parking to serve the park will forever be underutilized. And really, the service that PAL provides to the community, they provide recreational opportunities to young people in the community that other people don't, and we certainly don't. So if they don't provide those opportunities, and then they cap their signups, there will be a certain number of kids that don't have a place to play soccer. So we see that this as a valuable opportunity to expand the park and enhance safety and function for the long term. So what we would do, if approved, we would go into design, and this is kind of a draft of what it might look like. We're proposing to take the basketball courts where they are now and move those to the east side of the playground and turn the basketball court into parking, and then also the area south of the playground. We would take that and we would turn that into a parking lot as well. So that's kind of the concept that we've developed. We're working out a partnership. This is design only, and if approved, we don't want to do a set of plans that's going to sit on the shelf. So there's got to be some willingness to follow it through to the end, and those are the conversations we're having with you and also with the City Council during the budget hearings.
Madam President.
Commissioner Steele?
Mike, I was out there this last weekend, just to drive by and check it out. And even as busy as the soccer was, which it was crazy, there were still 3 of those courts being used for basketball.
3 of the basketball.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're getting rid of, and the whole reason we designed that court the way it was is because it was a large piece of concrete that they could do other things if they wanted to do roller hockey or whatever, because we've talked about, just a lot of different things out there. And I don't know, I just see that as a huge asset going away.
So, and that's great point. So when that first went in, it was originally designed to be a roller hockey rink. And in fact, there was a very slick surface put on it. So then the roller hockey idea from PAL didn't pan out. And then it went to basketball. And PAL was running an outdoor basketball league for a while, which they don't run anymore. So it has become an amenity more than a PAL's function. In fact, we had to go over parts of the court with it's called a bead blaster that removes that slick finish. So even with, I don't even think you could play roller hockey on it in its current state because we've taken that slick finish and removed it, because for basketball it just didn't work. It was too slippery. But it's a great point. So what our proposal is, we have 3 full courts right now. Our proposal would be 1 full court basketball court, and then 2 backboards on the side. So you could have 4 half-court games going on at the same time, where now we have 6. So that's kind of at least the concept for now. I mean, it's open for change, discussion. We're kind of shoehorning a lot of stuff in there, but
Kind of throw Colin into this mix. Colin, down the road with recreation programs, I mean, we're talking about adding more social type stuff. Is that something down the road that we need to look at, is losing that concrete and space?
We talked a lot about these courts. The courts right now at Heroes Park are reservable for 3-on-3 basketball leagues or tournaments. Anybody is available to reserve them. They have not been reserved once in the last couple of years outside of our own youth basketball camps. And we did have a conversation with Jake about the basketball camps that he runs at Heroes Park, and he said that this concept would work fine even if we ended up, with only 1 hoop on the side, which we've talked about as well, just having the 3 hoops. And so where we were coming at with this is that with the 3 full-size courts, it seems to be more than what's needed at the park right now. I think if you drive by on any given day, there's not more than 3 of the hoops being used. And so we just felt like a little bit of it is wasted space right now, since they don't get used for any structured leagues or tournaments, that we could get by with this concept for just the passive use that it gets. And it would be better served as parking, because that's a pretty big need.
So, Madam President, Commissioner Steele, so we didn't start with this. So 2 thoughts. The first thought is we didn't start with this. I started by talking to the folks that own the church and approached them to see what their long-term plans are for that location. Because I don't know if they plan on, if it's getting too busy for them, they want to move farther out, if they're expanding, contracting, whatever. So I approached them with a casual conversation of a possible, to see if we could purchase that from them and turn that into a parking lot. Because that would give you parking with direct access to 10 Mile. It would also give you direct parking with direct access to the north side of the field, and it wouldn't take away any amenities. But with that said, there may be an opportunity in design that you could put a couple of hoops on the south side of that parking lot for like a overflow, and have a flex space maybe where you had parking on busy days and then you opened it up on the weekends or for events. I mean, that's a possibility. Right.
Originally when we looked at this, because again, they brought in the hockey rink, they bought from Coeur d'Alene or somewhere up there, and all of this stuff, and the parking lot was actually going to partially be designed to have overflow courts that they could put over there. So again, I mean, we're using this 3 months out of the year, and so I don't know. I just hate to, if we can design it to where they can go back and forth, I think that's probably better than losing that space for a league that's there for 3 months and that space.
I think there's a way to, because you're right, and parking's tricky in a park because you need a lot of parking for a limited number of days every year, and you don't want to take, you don't want to put in too much parking, but you certainly, there's a fine line between too much and not enough. And I think it's the, you know, it's a constant battle, and I know with this, when 10 Mile is widened this year, we will not have enough parking, and the park will be underutilized.
How
But I
does
think
that affect the church? I mean, because there isn't much room between 10 Mile and the park with that
Yeah.
church sitting there.
correct.
So if they take up a lot of that, I mean, they're gonna be crunched for any
Yeah.
kind of space themselves.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I think they're gonna buy at least 20 feet of right of way. So yeah, they're encroaching into the church parking lot. Yeah, definitely. But I think, you know, to your point, that's a great point, and I appreciate the insight into that. And that if we could do some kind of flex space there, that would be awesome. Yeah, thank you.
I'm not trying to beat you up, it just, you know.
He is.
No, it's not taken that way. No, I appreciate it. Anything else on Heroes Park?
I think so. We're good, thank you.
And then, so number 8,
As I say, hey, here's what we wanna borrow.
yeah, this is, Keith, do you want to borrow this? No, yeah.
I'll even rake leaves with mine, right?
Yeah, so this is for pathways, again, you know, more pathways, more maintenance, and then also the downtown flower pots. Right now, we have hanging baskets on Broadway that kind of keep growing and expanding, and there's some pots that we have to water by hand every day. So we have to send a truck downtown every morning during the summer it takes them a couple hours. By the time they leave the shop and they come over and they water the pots downtown, it's at least a 2-hour turnaround. So this can be stationed down here and work from the downtown, and it would have a water tank in it. The pathways, you know, the equipment for the pathways, that's a little bit overdone, I think. But the idea is that you could leave the shop and go travel down a pathway, dump garbage. You can look for graffiti. You can, you know, do other tasks down there, and you're not taking a pickup down the path, because when people, and as more and more people use the pathways, there's vehicles and pedestrians and bikes, there's a conflict there. They don't, there's nowhere for a wider vehicle to kind of turn off and get out of the way. And it looks like something that doesn't belong there. So it's a lot friendlier to work out of a piece of equipment like this. So that's some of the thought behind it.
Makes sense.
And then 10 Mile Road widening, we have a cost share for, so when the city requires or desires sidewalks that are detached from the curb. So in areas that haven't annexed into the city yet, we can't make them go and put sprinklers in there. And a lot of these properties don't have any water, they don't have any power, they're just waiting for development. So what we do is we go install round rock in between the curb and the sidewalk, and it beautifies it in the interim. And some of the areas stay there for a couple of years, and some stay there for many years. It just depends on when it develops. There's on Locust Grove, on Ustick, sorry, between Locust Grove and Eagle Road on the south side, there's a whole strip of this round rock there, and there's a subdivision going in that's just scooped it out, and they put sprinklers and grass in, so it's working exactly how it's intended to work, where it beautifies it. And then as development comes in, then they are required to pull this out and and beautify it with more permanent landscaping.
Madam President, a quick question. How do you keep the weeds from growing up in those areas?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We have to touch that, so we don't use weed barrier. Okay. Because the reason we don't is when a car goes through that, which they do, the weed barrier pushes up in the air and you can't tuck it back in. It looks forever like a piece of trash in that strip there. Right. So it's done, the work is primarily done with ACHD's right-of-way spray program. So they go along with the boom and they treat it just like they do the right-of-ways. We have to go back and we have to touch it up because they miss some areas or they have some escapes, and we want it to stay clean. But the bulk of the work is done by ACHD.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gelsomino.
Mike, I just want to piggyback off of Commissioner Nesbitt's question and comment is, you know, I prefer the rock just because it avoids, you know, at least in my opinion, it avoids the proliferation of goat heads and goat head ground cover, and their, you know, the thorns end up on the sidewalk, and then we have bicyclists popping tires. So I prefer, I commend the idea of the round rock, you know, and dependent upon what color scheme or whatever the type of round rock. I mean, it goes really well with the theme of, you know, what our state, you know, those earth tones that our state really, that beautify our state.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Was that is this the end of them? Oh, no. Okay. I thought
I'm sorry. We're almost there. We're almost to the end. So, in the budget requests that are not necessarily enhancements that are tied to growth, we do replace equipment and things that wear out. And here's a kind of a laundry list of those items that we're proposing for this year. And we have a couple of 94 and a couple of 96 trucks that have reached the end of their lifespan, and then a mower, and we communicate with our irrigations with the bigger sites via cell phone to run our irrigation systems. We have a central control at our maintenance shop that calls up these remote sites, and we have 22 of them that are right now they're 3G technology, and 3G is going away. It's all 4G, so we need to replace those modems because they just won't work. So,
and Madam President, not only that, Mike, but from what I've been hearing, T-Mobile's going to move on to the 5G. So they're already outpacing everybody else.
And it might be, I might have that right. It might be 4G and we're going to 5G. That
right.
I'm like, again, I'm coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the idea. I mean, the way we communicate with these sites is very efficient. I mean, it's cheaper than having a landline in there, and we have to do it. So, with that, I would appreciate any questions you might have.
Well, I have a question about, it wasn't mentioned here, but when I talked about it on the pathway tour, Ms. Warren, it might be for you as well as Mike, but the pathway section from Locust Grove, where it connects to Chinden, the widening project, we kind of talked about. I know in one of these requests, it was the other side. It was Locust Grove and Ustick, the pathways to there. But we have kind of discussed a little bit that there's a corner on the end of Locust Grove that
Yes.
crosses over. And we're
Yes.
kind of looking at, it's a very small section, if that made sense to try to get that into the plans while the widening project is taking place?
Yes. With the
So I just want to make sure it's still on the.
still very much on the radar, and the short section is so the intersection of Locust Grove and Highway 2026 is in design right now. So there's that would be connected with the sidewalks that continue south. So you'll be able to go up Locust Grove, cross Shinden, and then go to, is it
Greenbelt.
Mary Post or down into Eagle and access the south channel from there.
And right now, we have an existing pathway all the way up until, I think it's the church right there. Is it a church? There's a building, right? And it's only a short section that we're missing.
Correct, but I think we're looking at our pathway being on the east side
Okay.
of Locust Grove. Right now, it looks like there's more on the west, but I think the
Right.
primary connection is on the east side.
Okay, so I think I didn't realize that. I was wondering if we were gonna have that in
But
one
even
of our
on the east
plans.
side, there's just a little piece there that's
Little-
farmland right now.
On the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, will be developed shortly.
Right.
Yeah,
Because that's actually that side puts us on with Eagle, and when they were
Yep.
here,
Yes.
that's what we talked about, getting down and using Colchester, one of
Yep.
those to
Yep.
cross, a light across Eagle, and then that part gets you to, with their plans, and I don't know how far they are with their plans, but that gets you to the Greenbelt, so.
correct. So, yeah, once we get, so exactly, so it's on the east side, and then we would cross, and I think you're right, it's Colchester, that gets you down to Banbury Meadows. There's a sidewalk and there's an on-street, it would be on-street, so they don't have any plans right now to do like a Greenbelt type connection or
No.
a wider sidewalk, but it's a fairly low-volume street and would be comfortable to take a bike down the hill and access that south
So,
channel.
but that's on the east side then, so we're staying on the east side, the one that is on the side of the church.
Right, but the pathway
Correct.
tour we did, what, 2 years ago? We did that section, and we came out on Locust Grove, and we had to stop right there, right by where you're talking about the church.
Okay.
That's where we loaded
At
up the
the
bikes.
parking lot.
Yeah, at the parking lot. The pathway is right across the street from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the east side.
So would you put a hawk signal
Yes.
to get across to that?
Yep. Yep.
Is there any thoughts,
Well, so,
Mike? Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
There's the chunk from Locust Grove partway down McMillan, be on the north side of the road to connect with that large subdivision. I realize it's not really part of the 5 Mile Creek pathway. It would be kind of connecting that neighborhood clear down to Heritage Middle School. It's canal right away right now, but I didn't know if there's any thought process on that, kind of connecting to the Maverick. You go up the west side and then, I don't know.
Apologize, I'm having a hard time visualizing. So it's on Locust Grove,
Beyond McMillan,
beyond
it
McMillan.
would connect the intersection of McMillan and Locust Grove, just a short chunk to, I can't remember the name of that subdivision that is going west.
Right, so I think probably the best approach for that, I would think that McMillan is going to be widened at some point. And there may be an opportunity, for sure ACHD would put in a bike lane and there would be detached sidewalks along there. And there may be an opportunity to cost share or partner with ACHD to install a wider sidewalk along that. So the canal would be piped in order to widen McMillan.
Right.
So then that presents the opportunity, because then you have the road sections wide enough to start fitting some of these items in there. I think that's coming
just didn't know if
soon.
that was the plan. I mean, obviously the priority
Yeah.
is on the east side of Locust Grove going up.
Yeah,
I don't know if does it have connection? You probably have to jig-jag, go down the west side, then cross over, and then go up the east
Right.
side to get to Shinden. Is that the case?
Yes, and I would propose during our next Pathways workshop that we look at that specifically and see what makes the best sense. Because that, yeah,
That'd
for
be a
sure.
great connection
Yeah.
to get across this.
Yeah, totally agree. Over to Heritage Middle School, if we can get some good facilities to get kids over there without getting in cars, that'd be awesome.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree.
Madam Commissioner, if I can interject, Mike and Commissioner Nesmith. Just looking at that, looks like there are a couple of different property parcels there at the intersection. So I agree with Mike's comment about waiting until the road widens, but we could do some due diligence and just see who those owners are and what it might take to connect that dot, since we do have pathway to the west. So I'll have that on my list, and maybe we can report back at some point.
Yes, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
our first opportunity to get to the greenbelt. So
Yes.
it would be nice to
Yeah.
Good
have
idea.
an idea of when that will happen.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gelsomino?
Mike, if, going back to phase two, and I wanted to wait till your entire presentation was over to ask this question, but on phase two of Discovery Park and future phases, if you could look into your crystal ball and see and foresee any future, will there be any future proposals, or in your thoughts, any future educational models or amenities in phase two and beyond as there are in phase one, such as the rock climbing wall, the dams, the waterways, those sort of educational, and when I think of the word discovery, I think of those exact things.
Mm-hmm.
Will those, in your crystal ball, do you see in phase two and beyond something similar that inspire and motivate kids and citizens, our constituents, citizens of Meridian, ways to educate themselves more or be more inventive?
Yes. So I would say what we've done in phase one of Discovery has created the backbone of exactly that. So we can continue with that theme throughout the rest of the park because we've put the backbone of those elements in place already, we can easily start adding other things that are either unique or cool or educational, and as they pertain to geography or the STEM or STEAM or stuff like that, we can expand on those things for sure. One thing that we are looking at is for Discovery Phase 2 is we want parks to be multi-generational and add attractions and activities for every age group. And right now I think we're lacking in activities for teenagers, which is a tough group to serve.
Yes.
Realistic, I mean, it really is, but we're looking at, what can we put in the park that 13, 14, 15-year-olds would want to come to a park, where if you come with, older siblings or family or whatever, so it's a family event. And if you can go out there and learn something and just be inspired even more, that's even better.
As long as it's just not one giant iPad.
Right. Well, yeah, Well, no, we want to promote physical activity,
Right,
and not.
exactly.
I mean, not just. I mean, a hangout spot is. I mean, that's a cop out. So we'll try to do better.
Madam President, Mike, door knocking, I got a lot of feedback on this, and skate park, they want more skate parks. That's what they want. That age, more than just Tully, that they want skate parks more scattered throughout our park system.
I think that's a great comment, and even at, I've said this where we have one skate park, and we have people that want to skate and scooter in parks, and they're always finding stairs and benches and stuff to grind on and play on, but we don't have anywhere to send them. So, a lot of times maybe it's not a full-blown skate park, but it's a ramp or a rail or a place that you can.
We even looked into the things years ago, those portable things.
Portable, yeah, it doesn't have to be this $400,000 concrete thing, So, yeah, good. Yeah, I think you can fit in all that stuff in as an amenity that Doesn't take up a lot of space. If you give kids a place to take scooters and skateboards and stuff like that, it doesn't, you know, you can have a cool place for them, something to do. So that's what we're up to.
Well, thank you, Mr. Barton. Does anyone else have any other questions before we move on? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Now I think we're going to take a moment to circle back to the Kleiner Park community update. If this is,
Yeah, this is Julie.
if Mrs. Julie Bodenkamp, if you'd like to come up and present. We're happy to have you.
Commission, I thought it was 6:30, and I apologize. I've been running every direction, as I'm sure all of you
I
have been.
thought you retired by now, right?
This is like year 7, Craig. Can you believe it? And you're not there. And the word you were looking for was grind.
Yes.
That's the word. So I had the kid that did that.
Oh.
Yeah, so the skateboards and all of that. Madam President and members of the commission, thank you so much for allowing me to walk in here late and still being willing to see what I have to share. This is my 7th year running the community garden at Kleiner Park. I can't hardly believe it, but I'm so excited to share the garden with you because it's an absolutely, oh my gosh, we're just growing it into something more than we ever thought possible. This is a fabulous view of our garden. We had a woman with a drone come in from Gardentronics, and she wanted to video, and she made a video of the garden along with doing a number of drone pictures. And look how beautiful those rows look. We were really excited about this garden space, and it looks even nicer from up above. So what I'd like to do is share with you sort of what came out of our annual report. I do have extra copies for those of you that might not have seen it, and give you an idea of the direction that we're going this year. Every year seems to be different, and what I find interesting is every year I write that annual report and I think, what else can I say different about fruits and vegetables, about digging in the dirt? Believe me, we managed to come up with 5 pages, so there's something to say, but what's my button to go next? Is it just enter or you? So we titled our annual report this year, Our Community Blooms, partly because twofold. We have, for the last number of years, given away bouquets of flowers to people in our community. Originally, it was to say thank you to volunteers out here at the front desk, up in the mayor's office, police department, fire department, libraries. And last year, one of the members said, can we just give flowers to people we think could like flowers? And we said, sure. And so it went to sick friends, it went to businesses in town, clear out to the penitentiary area. So we have spread our blooming flowers all over this valley. And then Jeanette Ferguson got a hold of me and said, is there any way you would consider making up some arrangements for Ponderosa Elementary School, who lost a teacher unexpectedly? She died. And I said, how many do you want? And she said, we'd love like 5. Is that too many? We made 7. They beautified the school hallways in a time of grieving for that school. And I know that they were moved from the school. They were there through the week and then moved to her memorial service at that time. And she just said it made a difference. At that point, we realized that the flowers were more than just flowers and that our deliveries were more than just deliveries, that they actually had an impact in this community. And so that's something that we want to continue doing. So do I have the button or do you have the button? I don't remember what I need to do there. So the flowers were definitely a vehicle for deepening our connection with the community. We delivered 63 arrangements this year. That was a handful over what we did in previous years. This was one on the bottom right, was to the mayor's office. This was a group of the women putting together the flowers for Ponderosa Elementary. We maintained the garden with the help of 260 volunteer hours. That was 60.5 hours more than the previous year. Most of those come through the Ada County Sheriff's Work Detail. They come out 1 day a month. I schedule those in January. And they work 1 day a month for us, starting in May. So they'll be here next week. Revive Church has come out. That's the large group at the top left. They come out 1 day in the summer, and all of those people work for 1 hour, and so that's about 30 plus odd hours there. A Cub Scout pack has come out in the past, and NXL. I forget what they were called before, but they were here last year, but this is their new name. They come out and help us take down the garden. So those are hours we don't have to spend. The education continues to take place in the garden. We have preschool groups, summer camp groups, Cub Scout packs, brownie troops, Girl Scout troops, and Boy Scout troops that come along with. We had a couple of people through Blue Cross Blue Shield that wanted to come see what we were doing. And once again, it's promoting garden education to young people who need to learn where their food comes from. This little group on the top is a group called Classical Conversations. It's a homeschool group, and they came out and picked 18 bunches of posies to take home to their mothers and fathers. Our Little Gardeners Children's Program was monthly. This last year, it became about every 5 weeks. This year, it'll be monthly. We have a woman from the Botanical Gardens who was a part of our garden last year, unable to be a part of it this year, but she's willing to do the education portion of that for us with the help of other gardeners. We make gardening just a really unique experience for the children, from putting together wind chimes to locating squash bugs to building scarecrows, which were by far one of my favorite things in the garden this last year.
And to playing in the mud.
What?
And to playing in the mud.
And playing in the mud and digging in the mud. You know, last year the fire department purchased a small vinyl fence, and we blocked that area off, and it's only, I don't know, yay big by about the same deep. And we sectioned it off thinking it would be a children's garden. And we realized quickly that we couldn't plant anything there because children just need a place to dig. And so it's a place that they dig and make holes. We also promote education in our community. I had the opportunity to go over to Caldwell and speak to Canyon Hill Church and the Sacagawea Elementary School over there, and they had this big plot of land that was empty, and they wanted to know, how do you build a community garden, and what does that look like, and what does it involve? And of course, our garden's extremely unique because of all of you and what the city allows us to do and what you provide. But they managed to put together a small garden. They're in an area where there's great need for food in that neighborhood. Participation is a little slow at this point. They're hoping to grow that, but they did a beautiful job, and they actually have an orchard behind where those boxes are. And so this was as it was established in the fall, and then this was during the summertime when they had that growing. So it was great to be a part of that. That was a partnership with United Way. We continue to grow as many fruits and vegetables, herbs and flowers as we can. That's a nice harvest from probably about June, maybe July, 1st of July, since the potatoes are in there, I see. Every year we try to grow something new and different, and we try new things. Our garden's definitely different than a lot of the food bank gardens who grow primarily late crops that they don't have to care for on a weekly basis. So pumpkins and squash and zucchini and potatoes and carrots, things like that. We grow everything from spinach and lettuce and kale and arugula to cucumbers and peppers and potatoes and squash. So, and this year, new number, 8,208 pounds, 4 tons plus of locally grown produce came out of that garden every year. That was about 750 pounds more than last year. We don't know how it happens. It just keeps happening. We also delivered 950 pounds of pinto beans from the Big D Ranch. Richard Duran has been kind enough to donate that. The little food bank on the bench, where they have a large refugee population, absolutely has loved those beans when he offered them to us 2 years ago. And they will call every once in a while and ask if they can get more beans. And so I call Richard, and he provides and we deliver. And this year we also hauled leftover Boise Market food from Ohana No-Till Garden here in Meridian and picked up on Monday from them to deliver to the food banks, along with gleaning from Spyglass Gardens in Meridian. And so at the very end of the season, they allow us to go in and glean what we can, what we think the gardens will be able to use. So we changed our workday this year to Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays, and that gives the food bank here 2 additional days to use that. So they have access to that on Wednesday and Thursday, where before it was just Thursday going into the weekend. We celebrate the garden at our annual Harvest Potluck, and we had another breakfast in the garden this year. That was our 2nd annual. We set up in the shelter just west of the garden. The city is gracious to provide that to us for that time. This was an extremely, and this is just a picture of all of us after a work day. I like to try to get pictures of everybody, and you can see we're all ages, kids and moms and dads and grandparents, and it's just an amazing garden space. The potluck this year was interesting. If you go to the next page, we had a band called Beyond the Burren, and it was good friends of mine, and they offered to come in following our potluck portion of that if they could open it up to their listeners who would come and sit in the park. And I started getting a little stressed when I had to call the guy that does the shelter, and I said, okay, it's showing a lot of people on their Facebook page, and I just had this vision of like a little mini Woodstock there, but it was just, you can see a small group of people, and it was a delightful time, our absolutely best attended potluck for us personally. I think the people enjoyed that time in the park. Free concert, basically. It's also the same night that Sensi lights off their fireworks. Oh. So it's perfect. So we do the potluck, we had the band, and we do the fireworks. And they're scheduled to come back this year. So you'll have to look for that first Friday in September and come out and listen. They're a Celtic fusion kind of band. We continued composting the green waste from the garden. We're so thankful to have the great big equipment that the city uses to help us keep that turned in the big area that they built for us. But we take food scraps out of the garden, food scraps from home as well, and add those in with manure and some other things to help us compost that. And I think this year we probably added 25, maybe 25 to 30 yards back into the garden. The Western Idaho State Fair, it's our new thing to do. We did that a year ago, and then this was our second year. We had 21 flower entries. We took home 11 ribbons, 40 for vegetable entries. We took home 29 ribbons. As you can see, most of them were first place, and I think we took home about $155 in winnings. So that's a big deal for us because, you know, we're just a poor little group of people that, I mean, everybody pays $35 to join our garden for the entire season, and that purchases our seeds and our seedlings, and any equipment repair or any equipment replacement that we have, any compost tea that we use. And so an extra 150 is like a big deal. And so anyway, you can see these were some of our entries going in, and this year we're putting together, you'll see it as one of our goals, but a group of people wanted to have more involvement with that process, so they're putting together a small, I don't know, a team of people that are going to coordinate that for us this year. Weed burning. That continues to be very successful in the garden, and the problem that we had is the top of that garden is surrounded by rocks, and those rocks had weed barrier underneath those. Weed barrier does not prevent weeds from growing in rocks. The seeds just plant themselves on top. And so we've been using the weed burning in there, and it's been extremely successful for us, and it's cut down on the work that we personally need to do in that space. And it also allows me to let the sheriff's detail do other work, because that's where their work was confined to, was doing the weeds in the rocks. We had an Eagle Scout project last year. It was unique. One of our gardeners had a brother from Florida who was having a difficult time finding an Eagle Scout project in Florida, and so he actually moved here to live with his sister, and he built 4 potato boxes for us, 4 cucumber trellises, and 2 tomato cages, and made shed repairs and added some shelving for us. So that was an exciting project. We did learn that potato boxes don't really work, and so now we're trying to figure out what you do with those. Everybody tells you they work, but the more you study about potatoes, they don't. So this year, at least in one of the boxes, we're going to try to grow competition carrots. And so over in England, they fill boxes all the way with sand, wet it down, core it out with like 2 to 3 inch pipe, plant seed. We can't buy the seed that they use here, but I found some fairly long ones. But they enter carrots this long in the fair. Wow. So we just think that would be way fun to do. So we're going to try it. I was a Meridian Star Award, but really the garden was a Meridian Star Award, and that was Jeanette nominating me for the work that we did with the flowers in the community. We continue to build our relationships around the community. I stopped in at the Meridian Food Bank a couple of weeks ago, had an opportunity to meet Pat now that Dan's retiring, and I think that'll be a great relationship. Last year, they installed a keypad And we were given our own code that allows us to get in and out of the food bank to drop our food off and not necessarily have to wait or meet somebody over there, which really, I think, emphasizes the relationship that we've built with them. And we also support a little food bank up on the bench called Community Ministry Center, and it just so happened I had a neighbor who worked there, and when the Meridian Food Bank had more than they could use during harvest time, we take it up there and they can use that food. This was really exciting. I was given about 5 days' notice on a Lunaria grant through the Idaho Botanical Gardens, and we've not been able to apply for grants in the past because we're not a 501c3. And this grant was established to encourage and cultivate horticulture and other related educational projects. And we were awarded $979 to help create the fruit trees. We had nearly $2,000 in in-kind donations that I was able to establish in about that time through the City of Meridian, 5 Mile Farm and Greenhouses, the Nature Company, and Haneke Naturally. And Girl Scout Troop 232 is meeting me at the garden next Wednesday, I think, to hand me $500. So they called and were interested in doing that. I called the Botanical Gardens and explained the problem and said, we're not a 501c3. It does say government agencies, so do you think we could do that through the city? And she said, no, I want you to enter as you. And I said, well, there's a problem with that. I said, we operate out of a shoebox. And I said, it's $35 in, $35 out. And she said, could we go ahead and make that payment through the city? And so Mike is monitoring that for me. So we've got the money, and that's to help create the fruit tree and pollinator project that we decided to do this year. I met with Mike last year in the fall and had an idea to plant fruit trees in the park. And as you pull in the maintenance yard, there's an area off to the right. There's a big concrete irrigation box along with some trees, but basically a pretty blank area of space. And I thought we could plant fruit trees there because they're not going to drop on the beautiful lawn out in the park, and we could kind of manage that the way we want. And Mike said, why plant them there? Just plant them out in the park. So we're planting fruit trees in that park out there, which is amazing. We're using areas right now that just surround the garden, so spaces that we can kind of personally keep track of. The next page, please, Rachel, thank you. So hopes for 2000, oh, we missed one, I think. Or maybe I lost it. Maybe it's following this. Hopes for 2019 will continue to grow fresh and organic food. We'll continue to amend the soil. The city was kind enough to do a very thorough soil test. We haven't had that done in the years I've been there. We did have a soil test, but we didn't really know how to interpret it. This was fully interpreted. And we basically found out that we have pretty great soil out there. It's a little alkaline and needs maybe a little amendment that we can do organically in the fall that we're looking at doing right now. But basically, overall, we were pretty pleased with the numbers. We want to have some sort of improved success with the potato boxes, but we're not sure what that looks like. I don't know if it's potatoes or not. To grow the competition carrots, to continue to share our knowledge with the community and others, and to how to use produce in the garden. We want to improve more participation with delivering the food. That's one of our complications. There's 2 or 3 of us that do that, and we need to involve more people. Form a Western Idaho Fair Committee. We've already planted 2 peach trees and 2 nectarine trees out there, and we have 2 apple trees that are to be planted soon, and to plant a pollinator garden. So in the space where we thought we'd plant fruit trees, we thought, why not plant a pollinator garden? So that was what I wrote on that Lunaria grant, and it's a big deal right now to be able to try to find ways to save our native pollinators as we continue to mow down the fields in our town and build everywhere, and we're taking away their habitat. And so if we can create a space, and even though it's not a large space, I think it'll make a difference, and I think it'll beautify that area. I think it'll allow us to have possibly better pollination in the garden. One thing we've noticed since I started 7 years ago, the last 2 years, we've had an amazing bumblebee population out there. And I mean, I hadn't seen bumblebees out here for a long time. I would occasionally see them on the greenbelt, but we have great big bumblebees out there, which is absolutely fabulous. So if you saw it, we made the front page of the paper with a $979 grant, above the fold, below the fold, and on page 7 and 8, I believe. So we were pretty blown away. We figured it was a non-news day maybe that day, but we were really excited that that happened. And that newspaper article has generated numerous calls and people very interested and wanting to know how they can help and what they can do. So this is the space, that top middle picture, that's the space as you come in on the right, and there's maple tree right there and a couple of evergreens and a couple of 9-barks kind of back there, and we're gonna develop that in 2 to 3 stages as the season goes on. Right now we're just trying to launch the garden, and so once that gets launched we can start working on this. But the goal is to have it be sort of a beautified space like you see below, and then we're also planting fruit trees. So we continue to receive just amazing and generous support from around the community, and first and foremost from the city of Meridian. These guys right here, they're like my guys. And Wade and Dan and Leroy have just been tremendous help to us over the last few years. John Muser as well, Mike. But, you know, things happen out there, and some of those things need to happen now, like if something breaks with the water and we need some help with that. And they're in the middle of an extremely busy season, and they managed to make a little bit of time for us and get the things done that need to happen. There's other local businesses. So we've got the Ada County Sheriff's Detail, of course, Big D Ranch, My Friends Beyond the Burr and Help, Community Ministries, DMB, and XL Far West Nursery, 5 Mile Farm and Greenhouse. And I'll list just the rest. We have connected with Meridian High and also Mountain View High School. I just received a picture tonight that just said, here's your stash. And it was from Mountain View High School and Trish Stokes and their horticulture department and what they've grown for us personally. Snake River Seeds sent us a box this big of seeds, which is just absolutely amazing. Spyglass Gardens and Wagner Farms both grow for us. And in the past, Jim Miller over at Walmart on Fairview has been extremely generous with helping us out. So we are going to continue working and playing in that garden this year. We've got an absolutely wonderful group of people. We allow 30 to 31 families in. It just sort of depends on my mood or my need, what I see we do. And we had 26 people initially come back out of 30. And we're actually down to 24. And so we've invited 7 new families and people in. And it's really nice because some of us have been together 3 and 4 or 5 years. And so we know the garden, we know the space, we work that space well. And I think every year we just get really excited about the things we're doing. It's a lot of work. It's hot and it's smoky at times, but we absolutely love, I think, what we're doing out there. And I think a lot of these people have developed, if they didn't have it before, just a heartbeat similar to mine. I want to feed people. And I just want to make sure that that fresh produce gets in the hand of children. And that's just really important to me. When you walk into the food banks and you see what they have and what they don't have, when I see the delivery trucks come and it's cake and bread and donuts, you know, and there is some fresh food, but there's just something nice knowing that we're adding to that supply of fresh food. And we're always smiling, always working, always smiling in the garden. And once again, we're headed towards another great season in the garden. And don't know if you have any questions, but it's been, the last 6 years have just been absolutely amazing, and this is year 7.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gelsomino.
Ms. Bokenkamp, I am speechless. You know, I come from a long line of farmers, ranchers, not of this country. My ancestry hails from Sicily and overseas. And I don't even know where to begin. I don't need to think that the community, you and your staff and the community garden make a difference. I know you make a difference. And in our society, when everything, even breathing the same air as someone else, has become so partisan, educating the next generation and our current generations on growing their own crops, continuing the tradition of agriculture and producing your own, your own produce in the earth that you till and that you work, and conserving our environment, conservation as a whole, has become one of the most partisan issues. And that astounds me, because we should not be bickering over saving the resources that give us life. That has left me completely gobsmacked at that fact. Now, first of all, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I am a social worker for the mentally ill and those who suffer behavioral health issues, mental health issues, who experience homelessness. As the resources that the clients I work for continue to shrink, including my own, the nonprofit I work for is dissolving as of June 30th. We lost our funding. So Idahoans who are experiencing homelessness throughout the GEM state will no longer have social workers. If there were more community gardens throughout our state, rather than institutions where those institutions become the immediate resource to help with mental health, I think these resources like the community garden could help with mental health. People who suffer from anxiety and depression could benefit so much more from these.
I had a woman join the garden
resources.
2 years ago, and she told me the garden saved her life.
Absolutely.
And I believe that it did. I think that that's, it's a really key space. And one thing I didn't mention from the start, some of you know, but when I assumed the responsibilities of this garden, which was really the second year the park was there, it was my goal that we create and build community within that space. And that meant we would start gardening together with people who, one, shared a common interest, gardening, but that we would become friends through it. And these are people that we never would have come across. You know, oftentimes we associate with our neighbors, the people we work with, possibly through a sport. But these are people from every walk of life, from every corner of this valley. We haven't limited it to Meridian residents. I had, a 90-year-old man from out past Karcher Mall that used to come because he wanted to dance and find a girlfriend at the senior center. So, so we've had a wide range of people. But I agree. The thing that we're finding difficult is finding people that are willing to put the time in to run something like this. Yeah. I just happen to be a firstborn and organized, and I like doing it. So, but it's like finding people. I mean, we have a board, but nobody really wants to be the president. Nobody really wants to take over. So, yeah. And my heartbeat's still the garden, so I'm still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask about that. So you have quite a large waiting list, don't you, for that?
We usually have, I think I have about 7 to 10 on there right now. Had 2 requests this week.
Right. So it stays pretty full.
It stays pretty full. I usually know what happens is by the time the season ends, I usually kind of know who's going to leave. And if I have confirmations on those leaving, I go ahead and contact those people in the fall that are on my waiting list. And then letters go out in January. And then annual meeting is in March. And we launch. So, I mean, it's just a ongoing process of, there's just great interest in the park, yeah.
I think I've heard lots of great things about your garden. So I did the University of Idaho Master Gardener program, and so it came up a little bit. We're talking about how it's done and how it's so uniquely where it's a shared space in other places. I guess they have where you check out the little section. And Meridian doesn't do it like that.
No, we are a communal garden.
Everyone is the garden.
And they said it wouldn't work. The city didn't want the responsibility when Katie Gonzalez started that garden, and it used to be behind Westside Church next to Sonic on Fairview. There was a 3-acre space back there that the church let that group have, and it was a big weedy space. And they were in talk with the Park Commission, I think at that time, because Kleiners were wanting a garden space. Nobody knew what that meant, but the city didn't want the responsibilities of individual plots that would be abandoned, because that's what happens.
Right.
So we tried this communal thing. Nobody thought it would work. It works beautifully. I've talked around the country about it. to various groups of people. And I think it's a winner. It really is. I did offend a master gardener at that Nazarene church over in Caldwell, and she asked if I was master gardener. I said, no, but I Google really well. Yeah.
Madam President, I'd just like to echo what was said. It's a really great thing that you guys do. And, you know, I think it was last night I was watching the news. They had an article about the bee issue that we have globally, but in this country and they said, that, you know, there's actually, I think Treasure Valley Bee Rescue or the Boise Bee Rescue, that they said that one of the problems we have is people, if they get a swarm in a tree or something, they pull out the killer and kill it. And they're like, that's what's killing the bees. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but that is one reason. They said that the bees don't want to attack you because they know that, you know, they die when they do that, a lot of them. And anyway, they said, if you get a swarm, call the bee rescue and they'll come out and take them and try to move them somewhere where they can
use them,
survive and do what they're meant to do. So having your pollinator garden is a great idea, I think, for that. I think that's
so
an issue that
the
we
problem
have, so
isn't
that's a
so
good
much
thing.
the honeybees. I'm a beekeeper, so
okay.
I catch swarms. And it's the native pollinators that are losing their habitat space. People do that. I remember the first time I saw a swarm, it's like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to kill it, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew nothing about that.
That's my first
You can
instinct.
actually almost stick your hand right in the middle of a swarm, and it's not going to bother you. They're very docile at that point. But it's really the native pollinators. It's looking at the various other bees, the bumbles especially, some of the butterflies. Would love to see some of the butterflies back, some of the swallowtails. I haven't seen many butterflies here in Idaho at all since I've been here, and I've been here a long time. And then some would say bats and birds. So that's what we're really hoping to work toward. But, yeah.
We're really grateful to have you. Thank you so much for all of the hard work you do. And
Julie,
Commissioner Steele.
I just want to say thank you to you. My wife and I did the community garden a few years ago now. And these people put in a lot of work. And there are truckloads of vegetables that go to the food bank, at least one or two a week when they're harvesting. And Julie, who's been trying to retire, I think, from this job for a few years now,
it's not happening.
Puts in a ton of work just getting everything organized and the direction they're going and everything. So I just want to thank you, Julie, for the effort that you're putting into this thing, because I know how much work you're doing in this thing.
Well, I love the organization end of it, and those 30 families, I'll tell you, they do work really, really hard. We've got just some amazing committed people, and the thing that's fun about it is everybody has their own thing that they're good at. And some of you may have read in the paper, a year ago, August, there was a man named Dick Ross, and he was hiking up near Grand Jean and was run over by a boulder and pinned there for overnight. He was in early 70s. And he was one of our gardeners. So he was unable to garden with us through the end of the season. Dick's back. Dick just got done sharpening all of our tools and just took our composter shredder, and he's making repairs on that and doing some machine work. And so, we're just excited to have the people involved. And, he's walking with a cane. He can't get around the way he did. But it's just the idea of including people where they fit and allowing people to use the talents that they have and making it count for growing food for our community. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And once again, my apologies for being late. I just read that incorrectly. I thought, who'd meet at 5:30?
No problem.
Sorry, Julie, we weren't.
No worries at all.
I was just glad to see you speak. I thought, and I looked. I will leave these. I don't know if you saw them or not, but I will leave a few extra copies of the report with Mike. There's 5 of them, I think, here. Anybody wants to take a read? Thank you so much, everyone. Come by and see us out in the garden. Tuesday nights at 7, Saturday mornings at 8:30.
Can I get on the waiting list for next year, maybe?
Yeah, so you just go to Meridian Co-op Gardeners on Facebook, send me a message with your email and phone number. Okay.
Thanks,
awesome.
Julie.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
All right, and now I think we're going to move ahead to staff reports. Then if we haven't seen Mr. Sidaway is not able to make it, then we'll just propose to move that item to the next monthly meeting. So first on staff reports, Mr. Barton?
Yep, and I think that's a good call, because Steve and I have been texting just for a couple of minutes here, and his son's gonna be fine.
Oh, good.
He's got a lot of road rash on his face. He got hit by a car and tossed off his bicycle.
Oh, my
So,
goodness.
Steve's at the doctor with his son. He's got a fat lip and loose tooth and road rash, but it's gonna be fine. So I said, don't worry. He was gonna try to come back, and I'm like, no, just we got it. We can formally continue the strategic presentation, and that's fine. So as far as my staff report, if you get a chance to go by Kleiner Park, go look at the band shell and look at the shade structure that's up there. It's finished. It's absolutely awesome. I mean, it looks great. And so that one, and then the fishing dock, and then Discovery Park. We've been doing a lot of ADA work at Fuller Park, a lot of concrete work. We had an audit done, and that revealed some items. It's an older park and hasn't been worked on for a while, so we're in the process of correcting that. And gosh, just a lot of things going on. But Discovery Park, it'll be exciting to bring you out there and see what it looks like. It's really everything now that we're in the final stages, everything's coming up out of the ground, and with playground and all this stuff. So it'll be cool. Thank you.
Really excited for that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barton. Over to Mr. Colin Mock.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Like Mike, there's a lot going on right now. We are entering summer, so I'll do my best to keep it reasonably short, but the home court project kicked off earlier this week, and so we are really excited for that. They started tearing out some of the walls, and so if you're familiar with home court at all, the sports office and the main office, kind of where you walk through from Bay 5 to the main courts, that area is pretty much all torn out. That's one big room now. And so they have a big tournament there this weekend. And so they just got started with some of that stuff. And then after the tournament is over this weekend, so on Monday essentially is when they'll really get after it and start tearing out the bathrooms and everything like that. So we're really excited for that project to kick off. Garrett's really excited. His desk is now a folding table at home court, so he'll be excited to have that done. Summer camp is coming up. We had a really great first day of summer camp or summer registration. So our summer activity guide came out April 12th. And so our first day of summer registration was really incredible. It shows just how well our online reservation system is doing and how well we're doing with getting the word out. So I don't want to bore you with numbers, but these numbers are pretty incredible. So 2017, just on the first day of registration, when we released the guide on the Friday that came out in the Meridian Press. So 2 years ago, we did about $2,500 in revenue on that one day, just for classes and camps. Last year, we did about $6,600 in revenue in one day, just in classes and camps. This year on our first day, we did about $28,000 in revenue in one day for classes and camps, which, I mean, we were all a little shocked as we were getting near the end of the day. We were running the reports, and I said, that can't be right. And so you have to, literally had to go through and just look at the transaction report. And there was $1,000 transactions just all over the place of people registering both of their kids in all summer of summer camp. And so that was really cool to see. And so Jake is going to have his hands full with our 3 summer camp sites. And then we have in our proposed budget for FY20 a 4th summer camp site that we're currently working with the school district on. Tentatively would be at Ponderosa Elementary School, so that we currently are at Sienna Elementary, Discovery Elementary, and Willow Creek Elementary, and so Ponderosa would get us further into the western part of the community. So we think that spreads us out pretty well. So that's going really well. Concession stands are getting ramped up, and so we made the selections for all the concession stands. We are in the process right now of adding another snow cone stand at Fuller Park, where there's not been one before. And then just yesterday, I sent out the request for proposals for a vendor to occupy the concession stand at Discovery Park. And so we're hoping that it should be occupied and ready so they should be selling out of that building on the ribbon cutting day later in July. Before we meet next month, movie night will kick off the first Friday in June, and then the day after that is Gene Kleiner Day, and so I wanted to make a point of inviting everybody to come out to particularly Gene Kleiner Day. That'll be a wonderful evening with the Meridian Symphony Orchestra, and then of course movie night is every Friday through the summer. Let's see. In sports, the big thing this month is the Summer Fun Kickoff Tournament. So it's one of the bigger tournaments in the region where we run seven fields, 4 at Heritage Middle School, 3 at Settlers Park, for 10U, 12U, 14U, 16U fast pitch softball teams. And so we have upwards of 45 teams in that tournament. So it's a pretty big one that Tyler will be running over Memorial Day weekend. And then also just wanted to mention on the 21st of this month, I'm not sure if you've got an invitation yet, but we'll be doing a check presentation with Idaho Power. Idaho Power has donated new batteries for the Egg at Kleiner Park, the volunteer ambassador vehicle. And so it was in need of some new batteries to keep it going. And Barb Hatch, our volunteer coordinator, she reached out to Idaho Power, and they were generous enough to donate the $1,400 to purchase new batteries for that vehicle, which we've been told talking to the company that provides these vehicles, that the batteries are like 90% of the value of the vehicle. And so we're feeling pretty good that we've got basically a brand new vehicle right now that will hopefully serve those ambassadors well for many more years to come. So feel free. We'd love to have any or all of you out to Kleiner Park on the 21st, I believe at 11 o'clock in the morning, to say thank you to Idaho Power for providing that for us. So I think I will stop there, even though there is a lot more going on. So stand for questions.
Thank you, Colin. Any questions for Mr. Moss? All right.
Yeah.
Well, with
Shall we go?
Leaves us with, Mr.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need to make a motion to move the item to the next month? All right. So we were unable to discuss the department strategic presentation and also the welcoming of our new commissioner. Do I have a motion to move those 2 items to next month's
Madam
commission
President,
meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we table those 2 items, the welcoming of the new commissioner and the
Pure strategic.
we see here, the strategic plan by Steve to next month.
Madam President, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, well, that will conclude this meeting.
Madam President, I'd like to make a
Commissioner
motion
Steele?
that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Granted. See you all next month. Thank you.
And then, Mike, are these gifts for us or Rachel?
Oh, yes, they are.
Awesome.
So, Madam President and Commissioners, those gifts are from the Mayor's Office
Thank you so
in
much.
recognition of Volunteer Appreciation Month. So, thank you.
Thank you. A cooler and a keychain. Hey.